Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the All-Star edition of the Hardwood Nation podcast with your boy CL Anthony, my main man Bryce Ward, and my other main man Mike Franz. What's going on, guys?
How
Morning,
much?
gentlemen. Morning, gentlemen.
Nice to see you. Almost fumbled that intro, but then you cleaned it up. I saw you stutter for a second.
It wasn't as bad as Cole Anthony and those Tims last night. Just saying.
I, I, I told you that was a bad idea the other day.
Yeah. I mean,
Bro,
that's an interesting prop, And then I thought it was kind of funny him dancing on the court in the Tims for a
yeah,
second.
yeah. The dancing part was fine. It pumped the New York crowd up a little bit, but you added literally 10 pounds of weight to your already short frame in a slam dunk contest. Like, that doesn't make
Right.
sense.
The effort was there. The execution was not.
Right. Those
Right.
Tims are heavy, dude. Back when I was wearing them 20 years ago, right? That was the style. So the Tims were heavy back then. Um, so All Star Saturday night came and went. Wasn't that great? Obi Toppin won the slam dunk contest. Carl Anthony Towns won the 3-point shootout, and the team representing Cleveland won the skills challenge. That's all that happened. Nothing big. But I want you guys. It just really wasn't. But the NBA is celebrating, of course, their 75th anniversary this season, and tonight during halftime. Bryce, I hope you're able to watch it. I'm pretty sure Mike's going to watch it. You're going to be able to see the greatest collection of basketball talent ever. I was able to see it back in '96 when they did it for the first time to honor the 50th greatest players. Now that they're doing 75, I believe of the 75, around 60 or so are going to be there. We had a few deaths. So please check that out. Mike, I'm
Mhm.
going to start with you. When did you first fall in love with the NBA?
Well, prior to even going live here, we were kind of talking about because I've got my LeBron jersey on. Bryce asked me, are you from Cleveland? No, I'm from Detroit, which actually leads me to the time that I fell in love with the NBA because I was born in 1983, so I got to witness the bad boy Pistons at a very, very, very young age. So when I got to see, Isaiah, like we were talking about Isaiah, Joe Dumars, Bill Laimbeer, John Sally, Vinnie Johnson, Mark Aguirre, right? It kind of led me in the physicality that kind of everything happened with the NBA. Like it was a sport that I just loved to watch. And actually, I fell in love. One of my first players that I fell in love with was Magic Johnson. Even out of I love the camaraderie with the bad boy Pistons as a team. But as far as a player, I love Magic. You know what I mean? So my NBA love has gone for decades, so to say, which is interesting when I have the conversation. Of course, everybody has the GOAT conversation. I literally got to watch Mike, the end of Kareem. I'm not gonna say Kareem because I didn't get to watch his peak, but I got to watch Mike. I got to watch Kobe. I got to watch Tim Duncan. I got to watch LeBron. I have a good kind of sense of where what I've seen and witnessed over the years and over the decades, so to say. So it's been a lifelong love. And I mean, there's things that I love, things that I hate. Like there's things I talk about out here in Phoenix where I've seen the history, and it's like, they just don't do enough for their team. They end up ruining it. So there's things that's like I have a passion for the NBA that goes far beyond baseball and football.
I know you wasn't in Phoenix in '93, but you forgot a certain MVP that year. Just throwing that out there.
Oh, I was out here in '93. I got to
Oh,
I moved to Arizona in '89, so
nice. Okay.
I got to see I got to see Charles and Kevin Johnson and Dan Marley, Mark West, Elliot Perry, all those guys too. So I mean that was a great team, and that's one team that had one superstar that actually went to the NBA Finals.
Right. Bryce Mike gave me a good segue, so I'm going to take over and then I'm going to let you finish it off.
Mhm.
Charles Barkley was the reason I fell in love with the NBA. First watching him with my dad with the 76ers when I was a kid. Then I stopped watching basketball when my dad did, when Dr. J retired. Then one night in the summer of '93, I saw Charles again on TV battling Michael Jordan. In that particular finals, Michael Jordan had to average 45 points a game to defeat a Charles Barkley led team. It was absolutely amazing. And for about 20 years, it was the highest rated NBA Finals ever. And that's when I fell in love with basketball again, recognizing Charles from when I was a real young kid with my dad, and then watching him battle to some the greatest player of his generation. So that's when I fell in love with the game. And then, of course, when Charles retired, I started following a team in Miami who ended up winning me a championship. So that was my career arc. Bryce, what was your first time falling in love with the NBA?
It's probably a little more common than your guys is. I was born in '89, so I'm not quite as old. I
You're
didn't
the
have as much
baby.
experience watching the
You're the
league.
baby.
Yeah, yeah. And but I grew up originally just a baseball fan, and uh, that just expanded into basically all sports though. But growing up, I had a Michael Jordan poster on my wall. I had a King Griffey signed baseball, and I had a Atlanta Braves, '95 championship poster on my wall. And the Jordan poster just came from my like natural competitiveness in sports and seeing how he brought people to the game. So I remember sitting in the living room, and my dad and grandfather were by no means Chicago Bulls fans, but if Jordan was playing, they'd put him on. And my grandfather grew up in Kentucky, loved basketball. He's a big UK fan. He just passed away this last week, and they talked about UK at his funeral, so I thought I'd bring
Oh
it up.
wow.
Yeah, he's a huge basketball fan. So for him to just sit down and watch a player, that caught my attention at a young age. And being so close to Orlando, my favorite team, because I was so young, I would just watch Bulls games sometimes when they come on. I think WGN back in that day, they had the Chicago teams. So I'd watch what I could, but I was just, I was like 5 years old, 6 years old. I was pretty young, but I remember seeing the emergence of the Orlando team and benefiting from having Shaq and Penny at a young time. And so like I had one of those, was it little penny dolls or little penny toys? I had one of those. I had these things, and Shaq. I was always a big fan of Shaq. It's hard not to as a kid to be like a fan of what he was presenting. So at a young age, I was a big fan of Jordan, Shaq, and Penny. And like I said, I basically just was watching other sports until about the time like high school age. I started watching college basketball for the first time. And after about a year of watching that, got really tired of it, like the sloppiness. I'm like, oh, this is why people watch the NBA.
Yeah.
And so for the first time, I really got back into the NBA, and it just so happened to be the time that Dwight Howard and the Magic were starting to really get rolling in the league again. And so since that was basically the first team and it was my local team, I just went with, this is who I'm going to watch. This is who I've always been a fan of, outside of Jordan and some players. And that's basically what got me into really loving watching basketball, like as an adult. Was the fandom around that, but just being old enough to realize what's going on in the court, appreciating the talent and the coaching and everything, and it was a great learning experience. But my love for the game and some of the players go back to like my earliest childhood heroes and memories. So I've always loved the game. It's just I didn't really get into watching it and understanding it. And me also being pretty short, I never really played in a league, so I didn't have official, coaching and stuff. I didn't understand it the way I did baseball. Even though I can't stand to watch baseball now, basketball is my favorite sport to watch, and I love keeping up with it as much as I can.
I'm gonna finish this segment with a story. We had the Balls in Our Court crew on yesterday. I asked those guys the same thing. Cortez told me the story that he's never told me before. We've known each other for almost 20 years. He is a diehard, no disrespect to you, Bryce. Cortez is a diehard Magic fan.
Mm-hmm.
Cortez said, and I may be wrong, but I'm paraphrasing. Cortez said that the day Orlando traded Shaq, or the day Shaq left the Magic to go to the Lakers. I believe he said it was his birthday. And Cortez's father is a Lakers fan. Okay.
No.
And he was the one that broke the news to Cortez saying, "Hey, we got Shaquille." Okay.
Happy
But
birthday, Cortez.
but here's the funniest part about it. So he said his dad gave him a choice. Well, you can either stay with the Magic or you can be a Lakers fan. And Cortez decided to stay with the Magic. I
Hmm.
told him, I say, you made the wrong choice because you could have had about 5 rings by now.
Yeah, thanks.
It's too easy to be a Lakers fan. He made the right choice.
But he had to make that choice on his birthday.
The info that came out though when Shaq when the details of really why
Yeah,
he left Orlando, I think that softened everybody's
it did.
even if you hated Shaq for that like one reason, that
Yeah.
softened that blow a little bit because that was ridiculous.
It really did. And he kept his house in Orlando for a while. He really did love that community. Um, so, yeah, it was a mess.
That's a
You're
funny
absolutely
story
right.
though.
Dude, it was hilarious. It was great. So, the greatest player of our generation, which we just named some great players that we're going to see tonight, the greatest player of our generation is LeBron James. Mike, he is 2 years away from breaking Kareem's regular season all-time scoring record. But ESPN threw us a curveball last week where they combined the playoff numbers, which actually pushed LeBron ahead of Kareem. How do you feel about LeBron being the all-time NBA points scorer in the history of the league?
All right, so brace yourself for this, CL. Brace yourself.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I think it's a soft accomplishment.
What the?
Okay. I'll tell you why. And then the reason why I say brace yourself is because you probably would have expected me to be like, oh my gosh, that makes him the
Yes.
absolute GOAT, right?
Yeah, yes.
No, not yet. I
Okay.
want to see the regular season points being passed, and that will confirm it for me. The reason being, two big reasons. A, the playoffs changed format in 2003,
Yes.
right? So LeBron's been to the playoffs 15 out of his 18 years, right? So that gives him an extra 30 games possibly and an extra 810 average points because he has an average of 27 points per game in his career.
Yeah.
Let's just take high level, just numbers real quick. That's a total of an extra 810 points off of an extra possible 30 games. Should they have gone all 7 games in the first round? Kareem played it with 5 games. Michael played it with 5 games in the first round, right? And then also, not everybody makes the playoffs, right? So you also have to consider the elimination portion. Michael lost and didn't make it for a couple years, made it 3 years, lost in the first round, and then he lost 3 more times within up to the conference finals, right? Well, LeBron's been to the finals 10 times in his career. So then you look at Kareem. Kareem's been to the finals 10 times in his career. And it's just now that LeBron passed him. Like, when you put the even playing field on how many times they've been to the finals, Kareem's the comparison. But as far as the games, the minutes, this, that, and the other, I think that the prior generation has a little bit of a standing point to say, well, LeBron, you got to be on the regular season is probably going to be the most even playing field for everybody.
That's pretty awesome breakdown. And yes, I am shocked. I thought you were going to be waving the flags and everything.
No. I thought it was pretty cool overall as an accomplishment. I want to see the passing of the torch based on the regular season where everybody had 82 games. Right?
Yeah, like I said, his scoring is up this year, but he's on track, I believe, and I'm adding injuries in there, a little window. I think he'll have it in a couple of more years, which actually leads me to my next question.
Before you do that, can I throw something in that's going to surprise you as
Yeah,
well?
go ahead.
This is actually an accolade towards Russ. Russ
Oh,
playing with Kate, yeah. And we'll get here real quick because I think that with the next portion of the segment we'll get into that a little further. But there's an interesting stat that I saw the other day where Russ with KD, Russ with Harden, right? they had their playoffs, or not their playoffs, their points, their biggest years in points, or their MVP years, were playing with Russ at point guard. Right?
Oh
They
wow,
had
yeah,
their point averages were almost as high as ever with Russ at point. So I think that's a good thing to kind of point out for LeBron, that maybe, hey, Russ is having his woes, but look, your points are up, and it's not a coincidence because KD's were up when Russ was his point guard, and those were his best years, so
Mhm.
on and so forth. So if I can find the meme, I'll send it over to you because it was pretty interesting.
Definitely. Um, Yesterday, LeBron dropped a nugget stating that he said two things that was curious. Of course, the All-Star weekend's in Cleveland, so of course you have that. He's back home, kind of. But then he also dropped a nugget stating that he will find a way to finish his career playing with his son in the NBA. So there's two things that stands out there. One, he's almost guaranteeing that Bronny's going to be drafted. And two, it doesn't matter if it's the Lakers or not. Um, LeBron James is going to play until Bronny comes in, which is going to be 2024. That's what people expect. How do you guys feel about now LeBron's talking about the end game?
I'll let Bryce go into this one first.
Um, I hope Bronny's good, because otherwise, when he gets in the league, everyone's just going to tell him your daddy got you in this league. So
Yep.
that's a lot of pressure on a young guy, even though he's thus far showed he's extremely talented. I'm just saying that's a lot on a kid, but I'm not surprised by any means. You know, me and Cam have been talking about this for a little while off, off the podcast. It should surprise no one that LeBron is willing to leave a place. By this point, we thought, he has a sort of home and a lot of things going on in LA, but that doesn't necessarily mean he has to be on that team anymore. We thought the end game would be to use the Lakers and the area as a platform to launch into bigger things, which honestly I think he can do in a lot of places anyway. So I don't think that's going to be as big of a deal. But I'm not surprised at all. And for him to just come out and be like, this is what I want to do. I want to play with my son. He's letting everybody know way in advance. So he's trying, I think, to limit some of the backlash. He's won a championship with each of the teams he's went to. He's justified each move. So in my eyes, the fans who used to burn the jerseys or get so upset, they can all get over it. At this point, he's set a precedent. He's told us what he's doing. There's nothing strange going on here. There's no hate or anything on my end. He won the Lakers a championship. So in my eyes, he can move on. Did he want to win more there? And could they have the potential to win more there? Maybe. And I think so. But if he moves on to play with Bronny, then I don't think there's anything anybody can say. He's letting us know way in advance. It's a respectable thing he's trying to do, play with his son. And he said he's going to take less money for it. So it's like, what are you going to hate on? Other than Lakers fans just mad that their best player's leaving. So,
Well, one thing we know about LeBron is he doesn't stay around for rebuilds. So
mm-mm.
Cleveland wasn't in too bad of a shape when he left the first time. Miami was on a downs tick, but I mean they lost in the finals, so I mean you can still say they could have came back. This Lakers team is absolutely disastrous right now. Of all the other places that he's left before, they are disasters. On paper, I still believe it should have worked. That's why in the offseason I picked them to win the championship or be in the finals. Michael, I'm going to throw this to you. What and before I will say LeBron's been playing fantastic this season. What is the biggest glaring issue that you've seen with the Lakers this season?
It's chemistry, whether it's between coaching. I think we talked about this beforehand. Vogel's transitions are horrible. Even as a defensive coach, they're horrible. There's no reason why they should be that atrocious on defense at all,
Mm-hmm.
right? His transitions with teams when it goes to the first and second the bench team, right? Those transitions are horrible. He can't pick the right five combined to actually have a successful game, right? where I personally felt that, in this is kind of the rock and the hard place. This is where we get into the Russ conversation. I don't necessarily feel that Russ is. I think Russ is a big part of the problem because he's having. I mean, technically, he's having a bad year from what we see compared to what we're expecting, right? But I think he should have been on the second team. But you can't put Russ on the second team.
Right.
That's the thing. You can't have LeBron and Russ on the floor at the same time. They both have to control the ball. Otherwise, one is going to be just non-existent, so to say, and it's always going to be LeBron with the ball. So guess what happens with Russ? He has to spot up shoot. He's a 30% three-point shooter. So coming over to LA as a three-point shooter and a 30% shooter, that was not a good idea. You might as well have brought Kyle Korver back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in that sense, if you can't put Russ on the second team to play with, let's say, a Carmelo and a Dwight Howard, right, and let LeBron and AD, and at the time it was Rondo, I would have loved to see that as the starting team and then Russ to be part of the second team. But then you're paying $40 million for a bench player. Can't do that. Right. So I think it's a lot deeper than just the bad shots or the lack of defense. The lack of defense in transition for Russ is horrible this year. So he's given up a lot of points. So it's not all his fault. He was put into a bad position when you're on a team with LeBron and you have to control the ball the way you guys have to do. It looked on paper, like you're saying, like they were a championship caliber team. I picked them to win as well because I'm thinking that hopefully, the assist portion, the points may need to go down, but the assists could have gone up for Russ. But it's just not working. He's still taking as many shots as he was when he was on the floor, and he's shooting. But there was one game where LeBron and AD had 25 and 29 points, and they showed the stat, and Russ was like 1 for 10 with 5 points. It was embarrassing for them to put it on the marquee on ABC. They could have put Malik Monk that night, who had 29 points as well, and they chose to show Russ with 5. Like, it's almost like they're throwing the narrative, like blame Russ, blame Russ, blame Russ.
Right.
I don't think he fits well with them, but I also think that Vogel's a problem as well. And then you've got the trickle down effect now where it just affects everybody. So LeBron has to put this on his shoulders, which is no surprise to me that he's having a great scoring season, but they're still losing, right? And I think that goes into the parity of the NBA. The NBA across the board is becoming a very, very deep league. I was having a conversation with one of my buddies about the Rising Stars game. Actually, it was my barber when I went to go see him yesterday. He was like, dude, I didn't know anybody on that floor. I was like, well, you might want to watch because this is the future of the NBA.
Yeah, the league's in good shape.
There's a lot of talent coming out, and it's not your bona fide superstars. So they're like, when you hit the draft, it's, oh my gosh, there's not one bona fide superstar in the draft. That's because there's actually a lot of talent across the board. So it's kind of interesting to see where the NBA is at right now. But, I can't fully blame Russ completely. But there are parts of me that say when you're on the floor, there are some bad decisions that you're making. So it's across the board for me. Coaching, GM, players. The Lakers are just a mess.
Bryce, I'm about to come to you, but real quick, Mike. Would you take the ball out of LeBron's hands? So on a shot-for-shot basis, let's say LeBron shoots better than Russ. Why not take the ball out of LeBron's hands and let Russ initiate all the offense?
LeBron doesn't allow that.
Well, wait, though. But wait. That's what I'm saying. If we're coming down to winning, and I think this is not indicative of LeBron. This is indicative of the coaching, and the culture there.
Mm-hmm.
If LeBron is the better shooter, which he has his days too. If he's the better shooter, why not take the ball out of his hands and let Russ set LeBron up? Let Russ set Anthony Davis up and Malik Monk and Carmelo Anthony. That's how I would come at it if I was Frank Vogel. Bryce, I'm going to throw it to you. The biggest elephant in the room. Anthony Davis is probably going to be out for another month. How much of this goes on, how much of the Lakers' failure goes on Anthony Davis's inconsistent play and inconsistent presence on the court?
I agree with Michael. I think it's a lot of contributing factors with a few glaring issues. the Westbrook thing is a glaring issue. The fit, the way the media has put the attention on him, maybe a little unfair, but that's been his whole career. You know, the media like to trash on Westbrook, but the Anthony Davis thing and his lack of great performances is super glaring to me, as well as his ability to stay on the court healthy. I stopped drafting him in fantasy because I didn't want to deal with the injuries. That was a while ago. That was when he was still on the Pelicans, young. So that's nothing new as well. I think they could have been closer to a championship caliber team with, you know, some better coaching. Anthony Davis being we thought. I think they could have overcome the Westbrook challenges if those other two things were to happen, because of how good LeBron is still playing.
Mm-hmm.
So Anthony Davis for me is the biggest issue, right next to coaching, and then Westbrook being like a close second behind that. So at this point, for me, it's I just have to move on from Davis if I'm a team. I don't like the way his body is conditioned. It's like it seems like it just can't hold together. You know, being a big man and jumping around like that in the paint, trying to going for rebounds. When you look at his little chicken legs, you're like, how can he sustain this? And the other night, it looked nasty. It looked really nasty. And it was just an ankle sprain. You know, it could have been way worse. So it's just there's a bunch of issues there. It's a lot of things there. Maybe they would have been better off taking that Buddy Hield trade instead. You know, like Michael said, look at the year Bradley Beal had next to Westbrook as well. You know, it's not like these guys can't play or bring something to the team, but there's something there that's not working. I think it's a bunch of factors.
So this week, the narrative on the ESPN sports shows were, do you trade Anthony Davis in the offseason or make the calls and see what you can get for him? I'm throwing it to you first, Mike. Do you trade Anthony Davis in the offseason?
I said it on another podcast that I'm on. Absolutely. Absolutely. At this time, at this point, look at now, and this was 2-3 months ago when I said this. I'm still okay with it, and now even more okay with it because of hearing LeBron talking about, well, I'm going to be gone. You might as well get what you can for Anthony Davis, because right now, if they were to make the trade, if they were to have made the trade for John Wall, they would have had to include the 2027 first-round protected pick. You're that gone within the draft that you can't build off of new talent. And like we're talking about here with the parity in the NBA and the talent that's coming in, right? You're going to have a level of talent that's pretty equal across the board, or at least competitive in nature to itself, right? Where these big threes are not even really a thing anymore, right? You can have one or two good players, great players. You could have. I think that with the way that things have gone, they could have had the Anthony Davis and LeBron tandem and just filled everything in. They didn't even need Westbrook with the way that the NBA looks. But when you're that gone, you might as well trade Anthony Davis for some picks, some first-round picks, or, you know, some second-round picks, you know, just a load. So then this way you can get back and hopefully build off of some talent later on, or use those picks for other opportunities for other players that will fill spots, right? So it's hard to say, because I think we sit here on past accomplishments and this kind of goes across the board to any player, including Russ. We hold past accomplishments so high to NBA players that we expect that same energy and that same type of level of competitiveness that they were. Like Anthony Davis in New Orleans, that was his team. You come to LeBron, you come with LeBron, you have to adjust to that. So now you're number two, right? That's a different factor, and that's something that has to get used to, right? Now you add in a factor with Russell Westbrook and other players, so whatever it may be down the road, but they have to learn a whole new playbook, a whole new skill set, so to say, because they have to adjust to these levels. Build your players, build your team, build it with young people, and do the rebuild. Let LeBron go. He let that note be known let him walk. Right? I'm cool with letting him walk. Trade Anthony Davis, and I would like to say trade Russell Westbrook for some picks, but his contract is so bad that I don't think anybody picks him up. So you might as well keep him and then, kind of build around that, if you ask me.
I'm gonna throw some names out because even though my team doesn't necessarily build through the draft, I know how it's done. So I'm gonna throw some names out. Lonzo Ball, Kyle Kuzma. I'm even gonna throw in Jordan Clarkson. I'm gonna leave Julius Randle out. If those guys were on the Lakers right now with LeBron running things, how powerful do you think they would be in the Western Conference?
I don't think that would have done much. We've already seen what happens, and I think there's another name you left out, and it's Brandon Ingram. Right?
Yes, forgive me with Ingram, yeah.
Right.
But I'm
So
just saying
Brandon Ingram, those are
I
players that, look who they got in return for most of those players. The only one that we didn't name was Josh Hart, right? You got Anthony
yeah.
Davis out of most of those players, which brought them a ring. So was that a failure in a trade? No, I don't think so. You got a ring out of it. But we saw what happened with Lonzo in New Orleans. He had the possibility of showing that he was good, right? And then he goes to Chicago and his game stepped up. That could be due to the way that they're working together, that chemistry in Chicago, right? So the team chemistry has something to do with it, like hugely for me. And that chemistry wasn't over in LA with LeBron. So I can't necessarily feel that they would have been that successful. They probably would have had more of a successful year than what they have now. But
Well, my point is LeBron didn't allow it. That's my point.
right.
And now the situation that the Lakers in right now, having jettisoned all that young talent, is based on LeBron. When he could have stayed pat and had a more complete team around him right now, because all those guys are studs. Every fucking one of them are studs right now. So if he didn't, and yes, he got a championship, and I'm not going to discredit his championship, but he did beat a battered Heat team after a 4 month layoff. Now, we have to put that into perspective as well, because that's the only time Anthony Davis has been healthy for the entire season when you had a
Right.
4 month break. Let's just be honest there, okay? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and Davis did play great. I think that was an anomaly, though. I really do, because when you look at the team now, it's a direct result of those decision makings as far as getting rid of that young talent. And now you're probably going to lose LeBron because you see a team like Cleveland. All they need is one guy. That's legit. All they need. Yeah, LeBron's looking at Cleveland. You're looking at teams like Milwaukee. They have one guy and a bunch of young studs. And then you look at the Lakers. They're a fucking mess. Absolute fucking mess. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I think the chickens have come home to roost um, from that decision making as far as dismantling that young team where the Lakers were trying to build through the draft post Kobe, and then you just rip it all apart. Um, I think LeBron is going to leave. I think he's going to leave as soon as this season because there is no way outside of trading Anthony Davis that the Lakers can get better. They're going to be trash for a long time because, like you said, they only have one draft pick in the next 4 or 5 years. They're going to be trash. Bryce, if you're the Lakers, do you end it right now and try to facilitate um, finding another home for LeBron?
I do whatever it takes to get the most assets back because, like you said, it's going to be a drought for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, whatever you can do to get the most people back. Trade Davis, like Michael said, it'd be hard to move the Westbrook contract, but we've seen really bad contracts moved before. So I wouldn't be surprised if somehow they found a way out. But I think that's the least likely move. I think the Davis for assets makes the most sense. There's no reason to want to hold on to him post LeBron leaving anyways. It's not like him and Westbrook with what you have seems like anything great. Why would you be better without LeBron? So, yeah, it just makes sense to just detonate and move on completely. Let a lot of these old guys out of, they got little 1 year contracts anyway,
1 year
so they're
deals,
gone.
yeah.
Everybody's gone. So you might as well. But you got to get something back, or else it's going to be just Westbrook with basically nothing. I mean, nothing. So, yeah.
You can
It
do
doesn't
it.
look good. And
It doesn't.
as someone who doesn't like the Lakers traditionally, I'm all for it. I think it's hilarious. It doesn't even matter that you jettison that young talent out, like you said though, for LeBron. You got a championship. Like that's what matters. You could have gambled and said long term maybe that team got good enough to win you a championship, but you're gambling on a young team developing in 4 or 5 years and then you still don't know. So they made the right gamble and it did pay off. I would have made that same move. In hindsight, you still make that same move because you got a championship. No matter what, you make that move. But now the Lakers are going to be in that post-Kobe era again where it's like the fans are going to – I can't wait to hear the fans the next few years. I take real joy in that. You guys have no idea. So
it's going to be bad.
But they're going to be terrible. But I say you move everybody except Westbrook, and you move Westbrook if you find a way to do that. But then you bring him back a substantially just as bad contract, most likely, Gilbert Arenas. So yep. I know all about that. So, I don't know. I like the disarray for the Lakers, but in terms of just seeing where the players go, I think Davis should be gone. LeBron's going to walk. You're going to see Westbrook with a bunch of nobodies. So,
look, well, that may be where he plays at his best. CL,
yeah.
CL, I have a question for you though. I'm curious.
Yes.
How would you feel if Miami drafted Bronny, knowing that they would get LeBron back?
Totally getting a James jersey.
This is what I'm going to say. I've heard Cleveland louder than I've heard Miami. I've heard Pat Riley soften his stance on LeBron leaving. LeBron put out an Instagram post about a month ago when he was in Miami saying that Miami is still his city. We don't need him back. I don't want him back. And I really hope that the Heat wouldn't do that. That's just where I'm at. We're good. I'll pass. We're good.
Y'all drafted young players to keep him there before. Didn't work last time. We'll see.
We traded them to you guys too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really quick before we get into this All-Star game prediction, Mike, I do want to ask you about the clusterfuck that was the Brooklyn Nets for 2 seasons. How do you feel about James Harden forcing his way out of Brooklyn?
Well, I mean, I'm interested to see how he gels with Embiid because, I mean, when you see Harden in Houston, Houston Harden was crazy, right? Yeah. That man was 50 points a game for a whole month, damn near, right? And it's like the players of the week that he had. I saw this post where it compared certain players of the week. It had a LeBron comparison, a Giannis comparison, and he just blew these guys out of the water when he had these amazing games in Houston, but he was the center of attention. It's kind of ironic to me, though, that when he goes over to Brooklyn, he complains about the playing style over there when the playing style that he embodies is what KD wanted.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny that those two didn't get along very well, and it's now starting to come out that their playing styles were completely different. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's why I talk about team chemistry. So kind of roping back in what happened with LA, right? The team chemistry, you don't know what's going to happen until you're in that position. You look on paper and you're like, oh my gosh, this Brooklyn Nets team is phenomenal. Like, yes, I still, because of the LeBron factor, I still have the Lakers over the Nets, but that could have gone 7, if it was as good as we had hoped, right? But the chemistry that they had over there, it wasn't gelling. So when you talk about LA with Lonzo and Ingram, they didn't gel with LeBron, but you didn't know that until they went over there and played that way, right? Otherwise, if you had the crystal ball, you're probably sitting there as Rob Pelinka, and you're like, I'm not even offering LeBron to come over here, right? Because we have this young talent, but you can't tell that until it's over there. So to see James Harden move over to Philadelphia, he kind of finally got what he wanted because he's with Daryl Morey, right?
Right.
So we'll see what happens with Embiid when that team is built for Embiid, right? So does Embiid take a step back? from an MVP caliber year. He was number one in the MVP selection like at one point this season over the past couple of weeks. Right, he was a front runner for it.
Yeah,
so
he's a front runner now.
Yeah, what happens with Embiid is going to be the key to me, and I mean, I just hope James Harden is happy for I mean, to me, he's becoming a diva in the NBA.
I mean, he's been a diva, but
yeah, but I mean, more so than ever.
Right,
and
right.
It's like, man, like somebody joked, somebody that I saw on Twitter, and they were like, this man lost 30 pounds on the flight from Brooklyn to Philly. Because he walked off the airplane completely skinny. Like, what happened in that flight? But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if Philadelphia can do something with him, and if he can facilitate the way that he and Embiid can gel together in that chemistry. If they could work together, and they have that 1-2 punch, sometimes that's all you need right now. Like I was talking about.
I think Embiid's numbers are going to drop just a little bit, but I think Harden's going to have so much fun. I think they're going to have a lot of fun on the court. I don't know if that's going to translate necessarily into wins yet, but I know they're going to have tons of fun on the court. Riley, what do you think? All right, cool. Bryce, what do you think about Joelle Embiid and the James Harden pairing?
I think on paper it should work. Nobody should be getting in the way. Like with the Brooklyn, it's like who's going to have the ball in their hands. It's like on paper that we had our ideas, but then with the egos and actual play on court, you just never know. In my eyes, Doc Rivers being there and setting the precedent early when he came to Philly, saying this is Embiid's team. That was part of the problem with Simmons. That should already be worked out at this point. Even amongst the players who are more quiet about these things, Harden is becoming a joke.
Oh, wow.
Right. That's the problem. His talent is overshadowed by how he's moving about the league. He's in the place he wants to be. He's next to a guy who's in the lead for MVP right now, and they have real championship aspirations. You throw him in there, and on paper, they should be amongst the favorites. Okay. So, to me, Harden's the one with everything to prove now. If you can't work there with Doc Rivers and Embiid in a system where they need a player like you don't have a Kyrie Irving saying, give me the ball. You don't have anybody else saying, give me the ball other than the reigning MVP. Well, not reigning MVP, but reigning MVP favorite as a big man to drop the ball into. You need to give him the ball every time and start running around the court and doing whatever it is. And if you get the ball back, do your thing. But this is Embiid's team. Doc Rivers has said that from the beginning. If James Harden doesn't work here, I think it's a bigger, a more glaring issue to sum up James Harden's career. And I think he's going to stop getting paid as much, and teams will stop taking all the BS he's giving them. Because at this point, he's having chemistry issues with everyone, literally everyone. So who's going to start taking him? Nobody. So he has to make this work for his career. Otherwise, he's not going to be able to pull these antics anymore. Like Michael said, he lost weight on the flight over. They could have driven, and it'd been the same amount of time. I mean, they're rolling out everything for this guy, and people keep doing it. But I think that's going to stop soon if they can't put it together and put it together like fast, like this season.
All right, so we're going to end it today with one question. So tonight we have Team LeBron going up against Team Durant. I'm just going to read the starting five real quick. Joel Embiid, Ja Morant, Jason Tatum, Andrew Wiggins, and Trae Young, all for Team Durant. And then for Team LeBron, you have Giannis, Stephen Curry, my personal MVP, DeMar DeRozan, LeBron James, and Nikola Jokic. Bryce, who you got?
My prediction is James' team and lots of points, no defense like every other All-Star.
Mike, who you got?
I'm with that same prediction. We're probably going to see 150, 160 points, right?
I think they're doing something different with the points this year, though. Kind of like with the with the rookie challenge. They're doing something different with the points this year. Look, they change it so much every year. I can't keep up anymore.
Right.
Um, I'm a bit torn because my Eastern Conference leading Miami Heat. Our coach is coaching Team Durant, and then I have Jim VP playing for Team LeBron. So I'm kind of torn. I don't know who to go with. Do I go with my coach, who is one of the top 15 greatest coaches of all time, or do I go with Jimmy Butler? I don't know. So I'm torn. But look, I'll probably watch it, and then at halftime I'll watch the ceremony, and then I'll go to sleep. That's just what's gonna happen.
I just hope no one gets hurt. That's all I care about.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no one's gonna get hurt. But Michael, thank you for jumping on with us today. Let the
Yeah,
people
thank
know where
you.
they can find you.
Yeah, I appreciate you. You can find me on Instagram, Michael Franz 0726, or you can find me on Twitter. I think it's under McCartney 0726. So you can holler at me, direct message, tag me, whatever you want to do. We can have these conversations online.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm probably gonna gift you a Westbrook Lakers jersey. That might be a special gift for me to you.
That
That's gonna
I would accept it graciously.
that's gonna be it, ladies and gentlemen. You guys stay safe, and we will see you soon. Let's see. That is it. And we're going to